What's amazing about this story is no one seems to be learning lessons, or who they're listening to aren't teaching them the lessons, right? This is Lamar Jackson, who has twice had COVID, from yesterday on asked if he would get the vaccine.
I just got off the COVID list. I got to talk to my team doctors and, try to see how they feel about it. Keep learning as much as I can about it, and we'll go from there.
So you might go for it.
We'll see. Talking to the doctors. We'll see. I'm just going to follow the NFL protocols much as I can, the best as I can. I'm not worried about it. Last year I came off COVID. I felt like we did pretty good. And this year I'm trying to do the same thing, if anything. So, just like I said, I'm just going to follow the protocols.
And I understand the general thinking from some people, especially a guy like Lamar Jackson, who, he's of the top 1 percentile, he's the top 1% in terms of athlete. He's an absolute freak of nature. So to him, he's like, look, I had it last year. I had it this year. I'm good. I'm good. Why would I get this thing? Right? But again, what happens is you learn, if you talk to those doctors, they'll tell you, like, look, you're less likely to get it again. If you do get it, you're basically completely unlikely to suffer any sort of thing health-wise. And the more people are vaccinated, the less variants there are. Like, all of these reasons are you just get the vaccine. Plus, you get a couple days off work. Remember, this is Kirk Cousins last week explaining how he intends to avoid contracting COVID without getting the vaccine.
I do believe the protocols work, and that's why I believe I didn't have COVID, after being in a meeting room like that, because the mask and the social distancing works. You test positive for the virus, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated, you can't play in a game. You can't play in a game with COVID, regardless of your vaccination status. So the key will be not being a close contact. That will be the focus, and we have to be very vigilant.
Yeah, no, the key will be actually getting your vaccine so that there's a less likely chance you contract COVID if you actually are exposed to the virus, right? There's actual science to it. But you have two guys who, are high. Yeah, you can't be a quarterback in the NFL unless you're highly intelligent. Look, I'm generally against the grain guy. I am. From sports takes to how I live my life to how I pay my bills to the way. Yesterday on Cowherd, I talked about how, like when I'm going to go on a trip, I don't book flights right away because I'd rather pay the extra couple $100 so that I maintain the flexibility of leaving when I can and I need to, and returning when I can and to where I need to. Whereas we're all searching these deals, you get this deal, but then you're locked in to a flight that you may not actually want, and you may be staying longer than you actually want. So look, it's smart people can say and do stupid things, but the fool me once, fool me twice, it's on me. That's the Lamar Jackson thing. And the Kirk Cousins thing, it's like, what are you actually doing? There isn't any science, any data to back up your stance. You would rather wear a mask everywhere, stay away from everyone, and still run the risk of being contracted, being tested more often. Remember, if you're not vaccinated, you're tested way, way more often. You're not actually tested if you're vaccinated. You'd rather do that than do the unselfish thing and get vaccinated, if not for you, for somebody else. Like, you're just done with it. And for the record, like, I've become like this radical centrist, right? I do think the idea of wearing masks indoors, when I've already been vaccinated, like, okay, I don't mind wearing a mask. It's not that big. That's not that big a thing for me. If you're not vaccinated, you should absolutely wear one. But the common sense or lack thereof tells me what I've always believed, which is common sense is not that common. The NFL cannot mandate that you get the vaccine, but they can make it so ridiculously over the top that you're like, all right, the hell with it, get the vaccine. Lamar's had it twice. And I know all about Tuskegee. I know all about the lack of trust in the government. I get it. I do understand. Okay? But when every sign is telling you what to do, when college teams and pro teams are all getting vaccinated so that they can have a season that goes out without a hiccup, why are two franchise quarterbacks not doing the same? You're not just embarrassing yourself, you're kind of embarrassing the entire profession. You're supposed to be leaders. You're supposed to be guys that people follow. You're supposed to be guys that do the right thing. And we all know what the right thing is. Whether you push back against it or not, you know what you're supposed to do. I can't. You know, Lamar, I do get, because his feelings are, override that of what science tells you. And his feelings are, look, I've had it twice, whatever, I'm fine. And, normally you think you get the flu, you don't get the flu again. You build up the antibodies. Some of that is accurate. Some of that is not, because this is different. And the idea behind not getting vaccinated is just silly. It's just silly. And as much as I like to be a contrarian by nature, this is not one of those times. Kirk Cousins only telling half the truth is like a politician. Well, once you get COVID, it doesn't matter if you've been vaccinated or not been vaccinated. Okay, yeah, but you're not actually tested if you've been vaccinated. And oh, yeah, by the way, you're much less likely to get COVID if you have been vaccinated. So we don't know when we'll see Lamar. We don't know when we'll see Kirk Cousins. I get the pushback against society. That's kind of our thing, right? But there are some things which you're like, I don't want to be vaccinated. You're already inoculated. When you're a little kid, you got shots. You couldn't go to school without being vaccinated. Couldn't go to college without being vaccinated. Vaccines were different, okay, but the idea is still the same. Well, I don't want to carry around a vaccination ID. You carry a government ID, don't you? What, in fact, is the difference? I mean, what's the difference? Well, listen, it's very different than having a card that says who my insurance is through. It's very different than having a card that has my driver's license and identification. It's very different than having an actual passport. Like, no, it's not. It's simply a digital barcode that says when you got your shot, or shots, depending on how you did it. I can't explain the idiocy of athletes at times, because I like to defend most athletes to tell you that the old days of the dumb jock are just that, old days. But these guys aren't helping me out that much. They're just not. They're just not.